Was suing the state after the 357 million shillings graft case acquittal. According to the legal team, it has threatened to sue the state for malicious prosecution. Malicious prosecution. It went through the Senate. There was, of course, that impeachment that we know it, and this case has been ongoing for a while. Dr. Martin Olo.
Yes.
Will his case hold any water?
Okay, let me start by saying that prosecution of any person or any Kenyan is a process that is based on information or evidence that has been analyzed and taken to court. Now, the role of the court is to assess that evidence and to test the veracity of the witnesses who come, and then the court can make its judgment one way or the other. In this case of Mike Songo, as indeed the case of Henry Rotich, the magistrate happens to be the same magistrate, and she says that the prosecution bungled the case. That the prosecution in the case of Henry Rotich would bring a witness and then they don't ask a question, and therefore the defense has nothing to cross-examine that person on. And then you bring one, you do that. So in other words, there is, if you like, complicity. There is, if you like, dereliction of duty by the prosecution. Better present a case, however hopeless it is, let the court come to a determination. But you can't go to court. You are presenting a witness that you do not want to lead their evidence in exam, and therefore you don't give the other side the opportunity to cross-exam. So the court remains tongue-tied. Remember, in any case, the court has no side to it. What the court does is to listen to what the prosecution says, to listen to what the defense says, and then make up its mind about whether or not a crime has happened. In this case, it is not possible for the court has not said that Songo was innocent. No. The court has said that the prosecution failed in its duty, slept on its job, and abrogated its duty towards prosecution. Remember, the courts are interested in justice. The wheel of justice only turns if the process is done to the full and completion, so that when you are released, it is so. So if I was Henry Rotich, I would not say that the devil has been ashamed. If at all, the devil actually has been ashamed in how you have been released, because you were accused and the prosecution failed to prosecute your case, and for that reason, you were acquitted. Not that you were discharged, not that you were found not guilty. So that is giving the devil maybe not the right credit. The right credit is the devil is the person who failed to prosecute you and therefore let you go free. That's the devil that Kenyans should be having issues with. So for Songo's case, does he have a case? Does he have the opportunity to bring a case against the government? Absolutely. And perhaps it will be very, very good case in the sense that the magistrate has already observed that the prosecution brought witnesses whom they refused to lead in evidence. In other words, they were unwilling to prosecute him, which means they were certainly not sure that they had done the right thing in prosecuting him. So for that reason, they'll give Songo an upper hand to say that this was malicious prosecution. And had it not been malicious prosecution, why did the prosecution not pursue this case to its fullest? So yes, Songo does have a case.
Right.
And when he does, again, we'll wait and see. Remember, if he gets compensated, and we are talking about 357 million, which could have been misused, Kenyans again will have to lose their taxes to make sure they compensate Songo. That is the tragedy.
There is no indication that the PPP also wants to, or he has indicated he wants to appeal this.
No, he can't.
He can't.
He can't. I mean, why would you appeal and you're the one who didn't do your job? Yeah. So the courts did not acquit him, did not discharge him. So in this particular case, the courts have released Songo from the charges because the prosecution failed. So why do you appeal against?
So was it designed to fail? Because we need to interrogate ourselves, even from the office of the DPP, what is really happening? This is not the first time that we've had cases of sloppiness and the caliber and the nature of prosecution that they're presenting before court. Yeah. Is there any corruption that is actually in this particular office that some people are being bought to make sure the case fails? So that if you're not able to prosecute, of course, that is a technicality, isn't it? Can I call it a technicality? Yeah, it's a technicality. Yeah. So we create a technicality there to make the case collapse.
Yeah, what is worrying me, Dibal, and after the very elaborate statement by a good lawyer, and I think Songo should be extending some fino to him because he has given him
free legal advice.
Yeah, a lot of advice, and many other people in Songo's shoes. What should be worrying us as laymen is what we talk of as separation of powers in this constitution are coming to bear, in the sense that now you can see the prosecution arm within the justice system seems to be failing. And when it fails, it also fails the court of law. And then therefore you get worried that was Songo taken through this process, including impeachment, because of political motivation, and the same political motivation has now changed to the other side, such that Songo's favors are now arriving. And it is fortified by the fact that the former DPP owned up that some of the cases he was prosecuting or he was taking for prosecution in a court of law were politically motivated, and therefore he himself accepted that he was compromised in the process. So as Kenyans, we should be worried. Are our taxes doing the right thing? Or are we being taken through this? Because now Sonko is accused of losing money. Now the same Sonko, if he goes through and he gets money, possibly slightly more than even what he's accused of, the same taxpayer is going to pay again for that. And this brings us to the final conclusion that yes, regimes are a product of democratic process. But these regimes are not useful to us because they come and they reap from the same public that trusted them. And therefore, how do we ensure that Kenyans in future will be alert to the extent that they will know we can trust so and so with our taxes and we cannot trust so and so with our taxes? That is the way I look at it. It is worrying, and it is worrying in the sense that we seem to be creating a culture that every regime comes with their own boys to town, and the bad boys today are the good boys tomorrow.
Barak.
Yeah, and the bad boys who become good boys must be protected, and we must bend backwards over to give them that protection. The magistrate in this matter just fell short of declaring it a mistrial. A mistrial in the sense that there have been procedural flaws. You would expect those who take others to court to put together watertight cases, put together watertight evidence, and to call and examine witnesses and present them to the other side for cross-examination. But it's been said that when nations start becoming banana republics, you can choose whom to pay if you are being taken to court. You can pay a lawyer, like Martin Olo here, to represent you.
Please tell them.
Or you can buy a judge, like me. Or you can pay the prosecutor. One of the three, or you can pay all of them. And you have your case sewn up nicely and neatly. But perhaps where you have not got what is a very clear acquittal, that the evidence has been weighed on the scales of justice and of the law of evidence, and that you have been found to be innocent. If it's not reached that point, if it's not followed that avenue, then you may need to also tread very carefully. These things which are left hanging somewhere in purgatory, where you are going, you seem to be free because they are procedural issues, because it's a mistrial. They have a way of exploiting loopholes and other gaps within the law to find themselves coming up again. When you find that you want to go to court, you could just be opening the Pandora box, because you present an opportunity for the right information to come up. Although, of course, it is possible that the courts may want to stay with their witnesses who are brought, that you may not possibly have the opportunity to introduce new evidence or to bring new witnesses. But it's also possible that some of the information that did not come through at that time could still find its way, and you are kind of bouncing around and behaving like a peacock may eventually burst on your face.
So I asked earlier, what does it say about Kaluma's anti-corruption amendment bill that he was seeking to make sure that section, is it section 64, that is linked into, that if you're convicted, then you're free to run for any office that is should be
to formalize
to electoral or maybe a public office, because it seems then it was not making any sense. So we have such cases, they go to the courts, even if you're convicted, still you're appointed. You have cases in court, but still you're a chairman of a certain parastatal. It doesn't make any lack of sense. So did the legislators just shut down this particular, and he was onto something? We need just to be realistic with ourselves, because it seems we are speaking from both sides of a mouth.
No, Dibal, we are very consistent. We have no problem with people who have been convicted for theft of public funds. We have no problem as a country. We also have no problem with people who are suspected, because we have a case where both the president and his deputy were elected as suspects, and they were going through a court process. And at that time, what the court said is that they are innocent until proven so. And for sure, the court since dropped those charges. And again, if we take constitutionalism to its fullest, elections and democracy are about the people. And the people should be free to make choices that they want. Nobody should stop anybody from presenting
Barabbas.
themselves.
Yeah, so it's Barabbas or Jesus.
Yeah, so nobody. Because at the end of the day, the people will make decisions. And if you want to know how people make decisions, look at the composition of our parliament. Who do we love as Kenyans? We love people who are flashy. We love people who appear to have succeeded. People who drive big cars. People who spend without any breaks. Those are the people we love. We say, that guy is very generous. That guy is very good. We do not ask what they do for a living. We want to have access to the money they have made, and we do not want to know the source of the money. That is our general Kenyan psyche. And we are not the only ones. I mean, if we were the only ones, why do you think that with all the accusations that Trump faces, with all the cases that Trump has, he is still a very popular candidate? The people are interesting. And that's why Dr. Stockman, that character in An Enemy of the People,
Ibsen.
in Henry Ibsen's play, had problems with democracy. Because the reason why he was called an enemy of the people is that he believed that democracy allowed every riffraff to make choices, to make decisions. So he was called an enemy of the people because he didn't believe that such processes should be giving us the kind of results we have. So what I want to say is that what we are seeing in that bill is actually the best representation of what our general thinking is. Because what Honorable Kaluma is doing is say this is okay. So instead of trying to even imagine that Chapter 6 of the Constitution outlaws it, because it doesn't. It's the weakest, the most, what I would call the most unenforceable aspect of our Constitution is Chapter 6, leadership and governance. It is so watered down. The only thing that it has there is the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the creation. And I'm one of these people who keeps making this point, and I want to make it here, that if you want to deal with corruption, you do not externalize the problem to a commission. The other day, somebody was asking me about Nakada and drug abuse. I said, those are symptoms. The issue is that what are the reasons or what explains the problem of drug abuse and so on. It's not whether we have an Nakada or not. It is about poverty, it's about want, it's about desperation, it's about all those things. So what encourages us to steal public money is because it is good. After you've stolen, you appear to be the kind of person that people want. You can also use it, and it's Kraitu Murungi who told us when Anglo leasing came up during Honorable Kirua's time in Kibaki regime, that they need, the elections were coming. So they needed some money. So Anglo leasing was a scheme because money was needed for politics.
Elections.
And as long as money is needed for politics, please, let us tighten our belts. It will be gotten whichever way.
Right. So what is, please?
What worries me, Dibal, the good lawyer that I know him to be, has just forgotten one fact, that despite all this, let's not put it into statute, that will make it a law, because the truth of the matter is that we've been having this little window that when Dibal is accused of having stolen these copies of the Constitution at Media House, he is assumed to be innocent until proven guilty. But when you say a convict can run for office, then now we are now overshooting the runway. It worries me, and it should worry all Kenyans. And I also wanted to correct him that Anglo leasing actually was not our baby. It was conceived in 2001 in a cabinet paper. It was never brought to our cabinet. But what happened is that this baby was carried full term, and the mother gave birth
In your regime, in your tenure.
And some of the midwives.
So you're the midwives.
Some of the midwives were our colleagues. No,
You know,
But we need to look who
marry-
so you're denying the fathers and the parents of
before he married,
woman with a baby.
I wanted those facts to be clear. That Anglo leasing was in a cabinet memo, July 2001.
no.
Then the child was carried full term. I'm not exonerating anybody. I just want to make it clear.
You know, Mheshimiwa,
Yes.
first when you get married to a lady,
Yes.
and after 8 coming to 9 months,
Yes.
she gives birth, we must assume
The baby is yours.
the baby is yours. And if the baby arrives and you say it is now our turn to babysit, then we must understand that it is your baby.
You needed the baby, even if
You needed the baby, even
biologically
if.
might
Because there was somebody who said it is our turn to babysit. Yeah?
Yeah,
You remember
yeah.
those expressions? It is our turn to eat. And they were talking about eating Anglo leasing.
You
So
know,
it was.
You know the ball. Even two Kenyans who live under the same period, they have different perspectives of the same event. And I was trying to lay the facts as they are. I did not exonerate anybody in Kibaki regime, because action was taken, and I think three ministers left office, some temporarily, some for good. I don't want to name names because
some
you know
went
them.
to meet with the America, so don't worry.
Some of them have gone, and some of them came back. They bounced back and they came to cabinet when the matter had already gone through the judicial system. But the truth of the matter is that it is always good to lay the facts the way they are. These are people who babysat the baby, and some of them midwifed the process because the child was still unborn, and they were born in treasury, and some people were dealing with issues of security, dealt with the baby.
Yes.
And therefore, you know, when we put these facts clearly that way, it's always good. It assists us to understand certain perspectives, because I've been lazy to write a book.
You should write a book.
I should write a book so that some of these things come to bear. But Dibal, allow me to say one thing, nothing to do with Anglo leasing.
But don't you also see the same train of unfortunate event happening also with the Anglo leasing? Because it went down the tubes because of lack of evidence.
Evidence, yeah.
Evidence. Yeah.
Yes.
The sloppy work that was done also from the prosecution side.
That's the same thing, and even the chicken feed.
The chicken gate. Yeah.
Chicken, was it chicken feed or chicken gate?
Chicken gate.
Yes, where some guys
chicken.
were convicted in London.
They have served their terms.
And they have served their terms, they have been released, they have come out of course, jail, and some guys here have not even been prosecuted. Then there is the Triton issue. The guy is extradited from London, brought here, is given a bail of 1 million, and is in the streets just joining us. If tomorrow is appointed to a serious public office, I will not be surprised, especially Minister of Energy, because he knows where the thieves are. And therefore,
not appointed. If he runs for office,
yes,
He'll be elected.
he'll be elected.
he'll be elected.
This country will elect him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, which I fail to understand.
It's become
as we're discussing all these cases, that you've been out there as a fugitive almost a decade.
16 years actually.
Yeah,
More than a decade.
Yeah, more than a decade.
Yeah.
Almost,
Yeah.
2 decades, or so to speak. And then you come here, you're easily just given a bailout, a slap on the wrist of 1 million shilling bond to be out.
Yeah.
Are we really serious?
Yes, because we have friends. You know, you think that he's been out there and he has friends here. He has been in touch with friends here. Yeah. He has been supporting them. He might have even contributed to their political campaign and so on. So he's among friends.
He's among friends.
Yeah.
Not just friends.
Yeah, he's joining.
There's a song that used to go like, I got friends in the high places, so high.
In which case, therefore, Martin's, Dr. Olo's position that we are consistent is not quite correct. We are not consistent, or maybe we are.
We are.
That from one end of the mouth, we are condemning corruption. And from the other end of the mouth, we are condoning corruption. But, if you try to present yourself before the electorate against any one of these people who are perceived to be corrupt, they will beat you with a landslide. They will not just beat you, they will beat you with a landslide. And after Kenyans have elected them, they will start complaining about corruption.
And the same guys who they have elected on that will start saying how corruption is bad. They'll be telling you how corruption is bad. But they are the purveyors, perpetrators of it. You see, right now, schools are corrupt. Hospitals down there are corrupt. And so we must eliminate corruption at all those levels.
We should centralize our
but
paying
centralize
system.
it so that we can now have a few then to corruptly benefit from it. Because you can see that even on that e-citizen, some 53 billion just disappeared. So centralize it so that there are few who steal and steal it big. Because the problem is that if it's too much all over the place, we don't seem to be seeing where this is going. Yes, everybody's opening an account here and there. Centralize it. And let's now have it with a big spoon, scoop it.
It is more of society, and I still believe that God will provide, because all the time I believe this country, even when it's at the verge of destruction, God gives us an answer. And God will give us a leader, just like many other countries have had their leaders, and shall be able to overcome corruption, because corruption must really be fought from all facets, because in our society, corruption is still the in thing. It's only that people complain when they are not part and they are not partaking in corruption. Yeah.
But what input now does, okay, you wanted to say something before I ask the question?
Yeah, I just get worried. Mheshimiwa Kirwa has been worried quite a bit. Let it now be my turn also to get a bit worried. I just get worried about the things which we want to take to God. Yeah?
I was fearing that you'd look over here.
Because God has given us all the options, all the solutions, and we are still going to God. We are praying to God to give us a leader.
Yes.
When we are the ones who are choosing the leaders. Yeah? Is it possible, like Dr. Law was suggesting here, that perhaps the problem rests with the democracy itself, that we have given the power of the vote to people who do not understand why governments are put in place in the first place. You know, when you go back to where even the entire notion of democracy originated, in the Greek city-state of Athens, it had very great philosophers. It had philosophers like Plato and Socrates, and before them, there were the people who are called the pre-Socratic philosophers, people like Heraclitus,
Epictetus,
Grotius.
Grotius, Parmenides, and others. And you will find that Socrates, the great Socrates himself, did not believe in democracy. He thought it was a very bad thing. In fact, one of the reasons he was killed and made to drink the hemlock was because he was opposed to Greek democracy, where the agora was open to everyone. You could come and express your opinion. Even those with the least understanding, they were part of it. Plato did not believe in democracy. You can read that in the Republic, in the dialogues in the Republic. He did not believe in that. Yeah. Then you find other people, the so-called sophists, who are some kind of sophisticated intellectuals.
Sophistry.
The sophistry. You find someone called Protagoras, who would fit in our society very well, because he says laws should be obeyed only when they favor you. It is foolishness to obey laws that do not favor you. Are we seeing that all the time around here? And we need to look at the model differently. The democratic tradition, as we know it, look at what it has done to Britain. Yeah? They chose to exit from the EU, and the decision was made by people who did not understand the decision that they were making, so that Brexit is today regret, that they are regretting. Yeah? You look at the Americans and the kinds of decisions they have made about their Donald Trump in the past, and it should not surprise us if at the end of this year, again, Trump comes back. Is there need to think about different models? I know this is very controversial, but when you look at all the great political philosophers, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, they didn't believe that the ballot should be given to everybody. because that is where the problem resides. When these people come with bags of money, fellows troop after them, fellows vote for them, fellows say that Kirwa is very mean. He just comes and talks and talks and talks.
But don't you realize maybe the citizenry have also, it's dawned on them, a realization that the facts that money comes and is being, in dribs and drabs, 50 shillings, 200 shillings. You've seen recently how people have been rejecting this money. Legislators from Kisii, case in point, what happened to legislator Osoro as well. We don't need your money. We saw it doing in social media. Have they awakened to the fact that, sometimes it is like Esau and Jacob. We give out our own birthrights for little bowl of soup that once we scoop it, we are always carrying that bowl all the time. And we let off our legislators just like that. They don't give us the requisite, or they don't actually make good of the promises at the end of the day.
I wanted to carry
why I was appealing to God first is that Kenyans are religious and they believe in God, a majority of them, whether they are Hindus, whatever the religion. And the other day I saw some press conference by the people of the cloth saying we elected you because we thought you are one of us. But we have realized that you are not one of us. So I'm still appealing to that constituency. When I'm appealing to God, it's not to God, the Almighty. I'm appealing to that constituency, that the person you elected is not one of you. He has turned out to be a different person, and therefore we are appealing to the same divine providence to pour on you, for you to realize that we need somebody else who will also be anointed by God. Because you see, this good book, when it is read by somebody, they selectively know where to read, that all regimes come from God. And therefore, God will give us a better regime in future. And I'm saying so, given the fact that the foundation of this nation was on three things: poverty, ignorance, and disease. We were fighting those three. We never impugned in our foundation of the nation issues of honesty, integrity, and good manners. This is the opposite of what Tanzania did. Apart from the three, there was a fight against udini, ufisadi, na ukabila. And those three, if you fight them, they are slightly higher in the scale of virtues. But this one, poverty, ignorance, and disease, you can fight poverty by stealing. And therefore, you will be rich.
Right.
And therefore, you have succeeded. You can fight disease by building your own hospital and being airborne when you are sick. And even the other one, what is the other one? Ignorance. You can fight ignorance by pretending that you are an engineer when you have not been even to a technical class. So these are some of the things. That's why I'm appealing to God. It's out of my experience in leadership.
And that is very nuanced. If you listen to him, it's very nuanced.
We will come back.
Yes, but I want to connect what he's saying, and then I connect something to what Barak is saying.
Yes.
I want to suggest to you as a Christian,
Yes.
that God has anointed Ruto at a time such as this to be the president of this country. So the appeal we should be making is not for him to give us another, because even this one, him was given us this one.
Just like
If it was the choice, if it was the choice of Kenyans, maybe we'd be having a different person. But this is the choice that God has allowed us to have at a time such as this.
Okay.
So whatever your prayers, know that hata huyu ambaye yuko saizi,
Yeah.
it's God that has allowed it.
All right,
So,
can I just follow through with that? Because I think also that is bound for, I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But in the event of Barabbas and Jesus,
yes.
did God give them Barabbas?
Now listen. Now I want you to get this very clear.
Because
At that
also
point,
that is the
just a
voice of
minute.
the people.
Just a minute.
Yeah. So
At
did
that
God give them
point-
Barabbas?
At that point, God was true to his word. He gave them his only son. So that was in his divine design to allow his son to go through that humiliation and not to give them Barabbas.
I think you don't. That is a debate that we
because there would be no salvation.
There's no salvation.
There would be no salvation.
Yes.
I agree. No, I'm just giving an example. It's true.
You see, salvation could not come through Barabbas.
Yes. It's only through Jesus. So
It could only come through Jesus.
Yes. Now that I think.
No, I'm just saying.
That I think is home.
Is the regime we have Nebuchadnezzar or Barabbas or Jesus?
No, the point is that even Nebuchadnezzar was God's own choice for his people at that time. Zakayo is our choice at this time. But where I was going to with Barak as well is that as you were speaking about the early Greek, Roman philosophers, and you've gone to the French, George Rousseau and so on, go to where Winston Churchill was and says the democracy is the worst form of government.
Yes.
But there is yet, he has not seen a better one. Yes. But then again, he might not have been right. Because when you look at the Singapores and look at the tigers that we were talking about, they have not grown to where they are because of democracy. Now, I have a problem when we sit in Kenya and try to be like Singapore and not have values, not have the kind, because when you look at the kind of leadership that these countries have had, they may not have been the products of democracy, so to speak, but in their strong nature, they were pro-people and they were for the good of the people. And therefore, whatever they did, people have since seen the outcome. So I'm still saying that, yes, Churchill was right about democracy being the worst form of, but he was not right to say there is yet to be another, because there have been some other forms of leadership that have given us even as good results without necessarily being democratic. That said, we are back to where we belong. Sometimes we run away from ourselves. We compare ourselves with others. We are not Singapore. We are not Malaysia, and we will not be. And we are not an urbanized country. And the reason I'm going to this is very simple. When you want to construct houses, 3 million houses in Kakamega, 3,000, or you want to construct them in Kaplamai, 3,000 houses, there's an assumption you're making that people in Kaplamai are urbanized and that they are going to take up this and they'll stay in those urban centers. That model worked in Singapore because of its urbanized nature. So you can't import that model here and tell us this is where we are going because this happened in Singapore. So we have to understand our context and work with it. What does this economy require? This economy requires better agricultural production, more food production, better health, and healthy people with food will then work out the economy and so on. I'm not sure whether this economy in its requirement prioritizes housing. I've said something about housing. And I've left it at that so that my good friend, Honorable Kiro, can pick it up.
Can pick it up on it. All right. I think even if we open up that discussion on housing, it will not really afford us some time. We've got just a little bit of time remaining, and also we give our headline thoughts. But I wanted to just ask, now that he's been exonerated by the courts, what sort of brand of politics are we going to receive from Sonko? Because we cannot underestimate also the constituents that really, looks on his side, and they've been favoring his side as well. And now he was sort of being stifled by the shackles of the courts now that they are free. Barak?
Well, he will bounce back, and I do not sit in judgment against him. I'm just not satisfied that the court process has had the kind of sanctity that I would expect in issues that are determining leaders and leadership's integrity. I have questions at the back of my mind, but I also do not doubt that Sonko has got the essential wherewithal in our kind of environment to bounce back and just watch that space. He's certainly coming back, either in an appointed capacity or in an elected capacity, the electorate being what we have described it as.
Mm-hmm. Right. Would be remiss as well if we don't talk about the 3,000 shillings that hustlers have to pay right now. Rent daily for city roadside structures that we discussed this largely, but I wanted to hear also from you the 3,000 shillings rent daily for city roads structures.
Daily.
Daily. Green Park was reserved for to be such a facility. I don't know. We've seen a lot of money is being stashed on the construction of Green Park, but that has not been utilized. So we wonder what also material utility was a Green Park for in the first place.
You see, Dibal, and this is my view, that this country is very resilient. This country has resources. This country has people. It has an economy that if only we sat back and did nothing, not did something, did nothing, this economy would grow and Kenyans would be happy. The problem is when we intervene, we do the wrong things. So that if, for example, we just didn't waste the resources we have, put up structures like the ones we put up in Green Park, abandon it. Have a project, the Huduma card, spend up billions of shillings, abandon it. You know, every other thing we do, we spend so much money and just abandon it. If we did nothing with the billions that Kenyans bring into this economy, if we had just allowed Kenyans to have money and tell them to do economic activities in the best way they know how, this country would go. In fact, this country does not grow or is hindered by government, not by it's hindered not by absence of government, but by the very presence of government. Because when government then comes, it begins to put in place mechanisms that deviate people from their priorities and their issues. If you leave farmers in Rift Valley to do what they want to do, they will organize themselves. They will even organize markets. Don't give them NCPB that does not work, and then the farmers tell you that this thing you're giving us is not working for us. So I think that sometimes we need the so-called the invisible hands of the market, the invisible hands of the producers sometimes to work. Our problem is interventions that are lopsided. When you ask people to pay 3,000 shillings per day, what calculations have you done against what revenue is being made, and what percentage are they then going to pay of rates and charges as compared to the business they're doing? Are you giving them an incentive, or are you giving them a disincentive to work out? Because taxes are supposed to incentivize. They're supposed to enable people. Like you see, if you have very good tax policies, and that's the problem I have with this regime, their tax policy and their tax approach to tax is to make Kenyans less compliant and to discourage Kenyans, so that Kenyans who would pay tax must find ways of scattering and taking off and not doing the things they do and not enjoying to give Caesar what is Caesar's. But if you do a good thing, if you do programs that Kenyans can see, all these things we are talking about, if Kenyans can see the benefits, they'll pay the tax. So for me, how you handle a Kenyan, or how you handle a producer, or how you handle a business person should be in such a way that you give them an incentive to wake up, to go and work, and to pay tax, not the other way around.
Maybe the money is also meant to be a deterrent to chase these people away from the road reserve as well.
Yeah, but you see, once you give a tag to something, you've already admitted. And my worry is that some people come from slum mentality. You see, the moment you say on every road reserve there is going to be some kiosk or something like that, you are creating a slum throughout the street, or between here and Kitale, because the road reserve was not defined within urban centers. But also, when you look at it critically, the way Dr. Martin Oloa said, 3,000 per day, 90,000 per month. Does primary school teacher, does secondary school teacher, does even a lecturer at the university need to do anything else? Because it means if you are paying 90,000, this business must be giving you about 400,000 for you to pay 90,000, and you are still thriving in the business. Dr. Martin Olo will leave the university, come and have a kiosk around Nyayo Stadium to make 300,000 shillings.
His research center.
Yeah.
By the roadside.
Yeah, by the roadside. Yeah, because he will have made a lot of money. But also, to fortify his point, governments, when they are less in terms of presence in people's lives, people do better. Even in Somalia, many people think Somalia is a failed state. But at times when you compare certain economic parameters within Somalia, within the Horn of Africa, Somalia is doing better in some of the aspects. And there's no government in Somalia except some little government in Hargeisa and Puntland. But the rest of Somalia, there's no government. It is just a country of warlords.
Yeah, the warlords
and still, they are still making sense in terms of business. Like even the money transfer, before we got this M-Pesa, they had Dapshil, which was transferring money all over the world. And that is the only system that even the international money systems has not been able to beat. So at times, more of government is a problem. Just to bring the point home, there is no county today that spends more than 30% of their money in development. 70% to 80% of all the monies that gets to the counties go for recurrent expenditure, which means paying for electricity bills, paying for fuel, and paying salaries for individuals. Mm-hmm. So the government in that sense is becoming a burden to the people. Mm-hmm. Because if the money, the 6 or 7 billion that goes to Trans Nzoia was given to the people of Trans Nzoia, and they sit in the village called Kablamai, and they share that money among themselves on pro rata basis. Mm-hmm. You could say 6 billion plus 750 million from all the 5 constituencies. So you'll be talking of 8 billion. Divide by 25 electoral areas for MCS. You'll be getting almost 200 million in every electoral area of MCA. And if Kablamai gets 200 million every year, I'd rather be the MCA of Kablamai than to be the governor of Trans Nzoia. Yeah.
Right, on expenditure still, Barak Buluka, we can see the deputy president and other CSS, they have hired 250 personal staff. 22 cabinet secretaries hired 250 personal staff in the financial year ended June 2020, adding to the many jobs that have been dished out by public officers on a non-competitive basis. You want to comment on that?
Yes, I can comment on it, but also on the earlier point. It's a situation where we have read in the Bible now that the 2 gentlemen have gone religious, that there was the king who said, "My father laid heavy yoke on your shoulders, I will make it even heavier. That my father caned you with whips, and I will scourge you with scorpions." Perhaps that is the scenario that one is witness to. But taxation is not a bad thing. Taxation is indeed a very, very good thing, a very noble thing. Some countries are very expensive. The cost of living is very high. The taxes are very high, but the quality and standards of service and life and living are also equally very, very high. That is a missing link within our context. About 200 personal staff. I think every president and every cabinet secretary requires that kind of support. There are people that the CS will come in with, and these people will help the CS to understand and to ensure that certain tasks are undertaken to meet the main objective why that particular portfolio exists. They will usually be experts and professionals within that area. They are kind of strangers in government. I'm sure Mheshimiwa Kirwa here has had some advisors when he was a minister. I hope they were there, even those days.
We didn't have them.
We didn't have them.
We had what we call personal assistant.
Yes.
So we had the 3 people.
Yes. They are the fellows who belong to that docket.
Yeah. Personal assistant, secretary.
Yes.
Driver.
not a driver.
Okay.
Maybe a chief of
But
staff.
Things have since changed because now the package
they have
that cabinet sector has come.
But even still, the way I understand Dibal is that the 250 is collectively. So it means every person comes in with 10 people. For me, as
It means that some of them are more with the DP's office, more with the president's office.
Yeah.
But I think for the CSS, they are given up to 3. Technical people.
Yeah.
Personal, that's an additional one.
Yeah.
So the numbers are there. So the issue is
10
250.
people. 10 people. You know. I did my first master's is in human resource, and it must be informed by really human resource parameters. By the time you have 10 strangers into the ministry, there is a problem. I really want to offer that advice now, not as a politician, but as somebody who has gone to school sufficiently to know that in terms of ministry complement, there are staff in every ministry that are relevant to that particular ministry. The only people that you can bring to guide you, if you are so stupid, are maximum of 3 people.
No, it's not a question of stupidity.
No, but
I think that is taking it.
You
No,
can
I'm not taking
allow
it
Mheshimiwa
far.
to get away with it. Don't worry.
He's just saying this with the tongue.
So-
For family
so-
and chick is only that
So
he's not
is
laughing.
he saying that his level of stupidity allowed him to have
To have
only
5.
No,
He's
but-
never allowed him to have 5.
No. Don't take it literally.
But to have 10,
But I wanted to ask,
Yeah.
do they just have the latitude to hire the way they want to?
No.
These are
First of all, there's a
how-
process.
But this has not even gone through the competitive.
No, there's
on the competitive best. What is the process then?
The process is this, that the CS will determine on the basis of the needs, the kinds of persons that he or she requires, and will forward the names of those persons to the head of public service for vetting, and the head of public service may say, yes, we see the need, you can have 2 or 3, and then those people must also be vetted by the public service. You don't just...
But the story is different,
that is the
If
story.
we are reading from the story,
Yeah.
unless you're analyzing something else.
It says deputy.
Without-
Yeah, if we just put it up, the directors we're winding up,
Yeah.
so that they can. Gachagua CSS hire 250 personal staff. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, if we just put it up, and the 22 cabinet secretaries hired 250 personal staff in the financial year ended June 2023, adding to the many jobs that have been dished out by public officers on a
Non-competitive.
competitive.
Yes.
You see-
but let's get this right. Sorry, must come in. There is a guideline around which cabinet secretaries have been given on the kind of personnel they can bring in. One, it's a person of their choice. I have served in that capacity.
And so have I.
And so have you. So it's their choice. All they need is to get a CV, and then the person is actually appointed by a public service commission. Yeah, so it's a government appointment, but to the special.
It's a special.
But
Personal-
the
personal
Public
to
Service
the
Commission can also reject.
Yes. So it's personal to the cabinet secretary. That position is linked to the term of that person. So if they leave office, that office also leaves. So it's a help that the technical team has, or rather the cabinet secretary has, with technical skills. It could be on policy, it could be on law, it could be on anything that
Which
they
is
feel.
admissible,
Yeah.
but the number is what we're querying.
it's
Which is
also-
admissible.
No,
there's
no.
there's no
It is
problem,
not
of
too
course.
high.
Even the president.
It's an average
not
of
too
10.
high.
An average of
You
10.
brought it. Let's explain.
It's only that now I'm really pinched for time.
Yes.
I can see my directors on my side.
You shouldn't have brought it up.
It's only me because also.
Just allow me. First of all, these people, the story itself, the way it is framed as a journalist, and I'm a journalist, is supposed to raise a sentiment. Yeah, some of these people are not even paid by the government. They are paid by donors. Time? Do we have time?
There
We
lies
don't
the
have time.
confusion.
Can we just speak up?
There lies the confusion.
We need to interrogate
We have
that.
so many centers to
defend
report
you.
to.
Just Satatu.
So bring it.
Next time.
Okay, next time.
Yeah.
Because also I know both of you I've been in. Oh, you've been on.
Yes,
Barack
so-
is still also in the.
No.
Are you still in office?
That's in the past.
That's in the past.
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe Barack is speaking.
They were
Unajua,
appointed.
Mwambia ngoma
They
vutia
were
kwake.
appointed by
Yeah.
I'm not there, but I think it is something that we have to give it to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
250.
Gentlemen,
No.
thank you. We need to go. Thank you very much for your valued company. I really do appreciate. I won't give you any closing remarks
Next time, don't
opportunity.
bring a hot topic in
But
this,
next time we'll pick up on it. Let me just also go and find out if there are donors who are actually steamrolling some of these
not
offices
all of
there.
them.
Yeah, not all of them. But
Yeah.
maybe it could be, maybe you, we don't know. Yeah, for the others, maybe speaking for yourself. Thank you very much for your valued company. This guy is up next. Huh?